Alright, so this is going to be a Frenzy Barbarian guide for hardcore single player on players 8. You can of course use it for players 1, but don't be a fucking pussy, you're playing a goddamn barbarian, and for players 8 it's just fine. And overall it's a completely budget build, you don't need any shiny stuff, any high-end gear like the fancy Mortal King's armor I've got just a few days ago. So I instantly respec this Frenzy Barbarian into Whirlwind, but yeah. Anyway, just wanted to show that off. I'm really satisfied I finally got my Immortal King's armor, and probably the next character I'm leveling up is going to be a Whirlwind Barbarian on, again, hardcore players 8. Anyway, I just farmed a couple of hours to get another token of absolution, so I'll just use it and show you how I built my barbarian. But first of all, let me just remove all this gear, since I'm not running any of it. I didn't run any of it on my Frenzy Barbarian. Right. Okay. So, first rule of making a barbarian is writing your name in caps lock. You're not talking, you're screaming all the time because you're a fucking barbarian. Lame jokes aside, let's start with skill distribution. And first of all, what you want to do is max out Frenzy. Well, it's kind of only natural, there's no weird synergy shit that synergies give more damage than the initial skill. So yeah, just max it out for the increased damage, increased attack rating, increased attack speed, and walk and run speed, which is kind of actually annoying when you get 174% increased walk run speed, and it's pretty hard to control. But yeah, just still max it out just for the other bonuses. Next up is 1 point into Berserk. Since you're playing single player, nobody will kill you physical immunes for you, so you just kind of need this. It's a completely one skill wonder. It's an amazing skill and just lets you rip through those immunes in no time. Next up, 1 point into Leap. Again, an amazing skill. Leaps you to safety, knocks opponents back, lets you skip some running around and flare jungles and the likes. Yeah, it's just a 1 point wonder you gotta have. Next up, increased stamina and increased speed just for some convenience. It's not necessary, but it's kind of nice. Like, before you're able to proc your frenzy or ramp up your frenzy, just kind of want to be running a bit faster than, you know, a sorceress would. So yeah, just put a single skill into these two. And of course, iron skin and natural resistances. You can put a couple of points in them depending if you're lacking like really hard defense or natural resistances. It's probably not worth putting more than a couple points there, but 1 point is a really awesome thing to have. Next thing is of course choosing which mastery you'll be using. Preferably you want 2 weapons of the same class, so that you only spend your points on one of them. In my case, I'm using Sword Mastery, but you can use others as well, depending on what kind of gear you find. So yeah, just max that out, 30% critical strike, that's pretty awesome. Damage increase, attack rating increase, that's really awesome. Next up, 1 point into Find Potion, which you'll probably never use, and 1 point into Find Item. If you don't have high-end gear, like I did when I was trying to pass hardcore here, with this character, Find Item is a great skill to have, basically on all those elite packs, just to get a second drop and perhaps find some really awesome gear. Next up, of course, is 1 point into all of these, and taunt. Max out battle orders, that's a complete must. And you can also put one skill into battle cry. It's pretty useful. I just found myself being kind of how do I say this? It was kind of complicated using all those skills. But it's probably really worth it. Just when you're surrounded by a lot of enemies. Though I'm kind of unsure if this doesn't get overridden by Decrepify, which pretty much is the only core item of my gear. So I kind of need to Google that, and well, you can do it yourself, and just based on that, you either select to put 1 point into this or not. Warcry, I even tried maxing this, but I just didn't find it worth it. It's kind of was an underwhelming experience, I would say. And yeah, you still have 20 points left, so basically distribute those skills into, like I said, you can put a few more in Tyrant Skin or Natural Resistances. You can put more points, 1 more point into Battle Cry if you feel like you need that. Or the simplest option is just to put it into your synergy. So basically double swing or taunt. And probably taunt is a better option, though if you end up using double swing just for that insane attack speed, which I didn't kind of find any difference between Frenzy and double swing, like it felt like it was doing the same damage. But I read that some people are using Frenzy to ramp up to that maximum attack speed and then just use double swing. Some people were advocating using double swing just because of the low mana cost. I mean, it's 1 and you have 3 here, so it's essentially the same thing. I mean, you have 200 mana without any gear. I mean, except for Annie and Torch. It's not even Barbarian Torch. I just don't have it. So let's say you have, like, what do you have? 175 mana. You just boost it up with battle orders up to 2 times that. That's over 350. So you can easily cast Frenzy over 100 times before you ran out of mana. If you have even 1% mana steal anywhere on your items, you'll never have mana issues. So yeah, I mean, just distribute the remaining points into double swing or taunt. Taunt you'll definitely be using no matter how you play. It's basically against all those packs of champions who are ranged, and especially if their boss has some nasty aura like Fanaticism or Might or Blessed Aim, and basically just keep hitting you like a truck. You just taunt his, pawns, they come into melee range, and you just smack them in the head. That's it. So I'll leave the remaining points like this. I don't really know where to put them. I'll make a second part video where I'm kind of showcasing how I'm running something like Chaos Sanctuary, and depending on how I feel in that video, I'll probably choose where to distribute those remaining points. So that's that. Next up is stats. Probably some into strength. The usual strength for items. The remaining go into vitality. I actually need a lot more. What was it? 142. Give me a second. I'll do one more. Okay. Yeah. So the remaining all into vitality, and we have 1.8k life. With bow, we'll have 110%. Essentially like 3.9k health. Let's just quickly boo up. 3.8k life. 22, 28 for the free resistances, since the bow affects, no, the battle cry affects natural resistances. Kind of don't forget that when you're building your character. And yeah, so pretty standard stuff when it comes to stats. Just as much strength and dexterity as you need for your items, and the rest goes into vitality. And that's essentially the thing that makes you so tanky as a barbarian is, and therefore the specifics for playing hardcore barbarian is that you don't need as much defensive shit as you would need on any other champion. Well, let's say paladin, you need a shitload of damage reduction, you need max resistances, potentially even over 75 if you can get your hands on something like a Thunder God or Hotspurs or Guardian Angel, any kind of that stuff. And for Barbarian it doesn't matter as much. Like, it's nice to have some damage reduction. I would advise to get at least like 20% through some sort of any source you can get. But yeah, it's not as a must-have just because your life is always 3.8k or similar, like 3.5k plus. Yeah, even if you don't have CTA. So next up is items, and yeah, like I said, you don't need as much defensive stuff, so you don't really need as much elemental damage absorb, which would be absolutely crucial for classes like Sorceress or the same Paladin like Hammered It, or Boazon, Javazon. You absolutely must have some lightning absorb, some fire absorb, some cold absorb, even if you have close to max or just maxed out resistances. Now in this case you don't need as much, so that's why I'm running double Ravenfrost instead of one Dwarf Star. You also don't need faster hit recovery because Frenzy is uninterruptible. They cannot basically stun lock you, so you don't need that either. Your faster hit recovery only matters when you're running, and even then I think they need to deal more than 15% of your health as damage for you to go into that faster hit recovery animation, which will pretty much never happen when you're running because you feel kind of safe, so therefore there's only a couple of minions attacking you, and yeah, if only a couple of minions are attacking you, they will not deal more damage than 15% of your life. So that's another stat you don't need. You also don't need faster cast rate. Faster run walk is whatever. You're getting some from your passives, as well as when you use Frenzy, you just get a shitload of it. It becomes even too much. That's another stat you don't need. Increased attack speed is also something you don't really need. Just one source of increased attack speed, like maybe 20-40 attack speed, would be nice on other items than your weapons, just to make sure that your initial attacks are faster. You can ramp up your Frenzy faster, but after you ramp up your Frenzy, all the other sources of attack speed are kind of useless. I mean, you're getting 40 free attack speed, so I guess a bit of attack speed is nice, but it's not as a huge deal as it would be for something like a Boazon or a Zealot. Well, not a Zealot. Zealot has Fanaticism, but for a Boazon. What else? Lifesteal is quite important, and Mana Steal is pretty much whatever, since your mana costs are pretty much non-existent. So, with all of that out of the way, and of course the mods you're looking for is, of course, Deadly Strike, and most importantly, Crushing Blow. Since you're a melee attacker, you take full advantage of Crushing Blow, which is huge. It's absolutely huge. Dealing a percentage of those insane amounts of health those mobs have, it's just fucking overpowered even. Yeah, so with all these mods out of the way, let's get into actual gear. And the core items that I'm using, like most of these items can be switched to something else. There's only a few core items, and one of them is Lawbringer. It's a pretty cheap rune word, which is, honestly, I was so surprised how good it is. I was so surprised. 20% chance to cast level 15 Decrepify on strike. That means that with Frenzy, you'll be proccing this constantly. And when you cast Decrepify, if you've ever played Necromancer, Bone Necromancer, you know how easy it is to go through hell, even on player state with shitty gear, just because of Decrepify. You Decrepify everything around you, and then you just slowly take them down. So it's the same deal here. You're proccing it constantly, and you're feeling really safe. Another thing is Sanctuary Aura. A lot of those annoying undeads, for example, all those spindle skin-like minions who charge at you, they pretty much never get to charge at you unless you run at them, because the Sanctuary Aura keeps knocking them back. I also read that Sanctuary Aura should be reducing all undeads' physical resistances to 0, but in practice I kind of didn't see it. But still, the knockback is really awesome. Minus 50% to target's defense, that's kind of whatever, since you should have enough attack rating to hit constantly, but I guess it's an okay mod. Then you have some elemental damage, some decent really damage, some lifesteal, which isn't a lot, because Lawbringer, what it really lacks is it doesn't give any enhanced damage. So your damage with Lawbringer's weapon is actually quite low. And if you're dealing low damage, then you're healing yourself for just a little bit. It's pretty much negligible. Slain monsters rest in peace. Again, it's like Sanctuary Aura. It gives you more safety. It takes care of annoying stuff. For example, all those Fallens being revived, all those undeads, skeletons in Act 2 being revived. It takes care of all of that. Defense versus missiles is nice, because again, you have no shield, they'll be hitting you constantly, so the extra defense to make their, essentially attack rating lower is pretty awesome. Dexterity is whatever. So basically, the way I'm using this weapon, the way I see this weapon, is that it procs 3 things. It procs Decrepify, it procs fire damage and cold damage. It doesn't deal, the Lawbringer's weapon doesn't deal as much damage as perhaps I would like, but it does deal fire and cold damage. So what does that mean is that we don't need a high damage base weapon for it. Like, there's a lot of weapons you can use Lawbringer in. You can use it into a Berserker axe, you can use it into any mace, you can use it into weapons. But what you're really looking for is the fastest attacking weapon you can find, just to proc fire and cold damage as constantly as you can, as frequently as you can. And same goes, of course, for Decrepify. So that's pretty much why I chose the Phase Blade. But I don't think it would matter as much if you chose something else. You could choose Berserker Axe. It's the most common option for barbarians, but it's such a hassle to find one actually. And not only to find one, but to also find with 3 sockets. It's just really tough to do. So I just said fuck it and went with a Phase Blade. Right, so that's one of the core items for this build. Another one is Treachery. Oh, right. The alternative to Lawbringer. Well, if you have Reaper's Toll for your Merc, then probably this build changes quite significantly because you get another source of Decrepify. But as far as I know, there's pretty much no other source of Decrepify. I mean, reasonable source of Decrepify that procs as frequently, that has no annoying charges and so on. So unless you have Reaper's Toll, then you can definitely swap out this weapon for anything else. The logic behind this build will still stand. You'll just use another weapon more like this one as, well, yeah, your first weapon, whatever. Yeah, so the next core item is Treachery. What it gives is basically a little bit of damage in terms of venom, attack speed so you can focus on crushing blows and the likes with your other items, and most importantly fade, since you're again using a double, well, you're using two weapons instead of a weapon and a shield, you will always lack resistances. So fade giving you 50 to all or similar resistances to all is absolutely huge, as well as giving you a huge boost to damage reduction. I think it's around 20%. And that's pretty much, oftentimes it will be the only source of damage reduction for you. Because again, other sources are like Helms, which are, you know, Shaco gives you 10%, Vampire Gaze up to 20%, but on Helm you kind of want some other mods like Crushing Blow. So I think Treachery is just about the best budget armor you can get for a Frenzy Barbarian. Like, you can get Fortitude, which of course makes everything a lot easier with the 300% enhanced damage, which is sick, but Fortitude kind of requires a low, which is 28 rune, and yeah, it's not a budget anymore. So yeah, Treachery, best in class for budget builds. It takes care of all of your defensive stats as well as increased attack speed. Faster hit recovery is kind of useless. Like I said, Frenzy is uninterruptible, so it's just there to be. The last core item would be Ravenfrost, but it's pretty much core item for most champions. Like, the cannot be frozen must be had from some source, and Ravenfrost is just an awesome source for it. Like, pretty much every single stat except 42 mana is what you like. Dexterity for some attack rating, then some attack rating, then some cold damage just to slow opponents down, and then cold absorb is quite decent, though not as good on Barbarian, but it's still pretty decent, especially when it's 20%. It's just huge. So these three are the only core items. When it comes to all other items, I can see various options. But what you're generally looking on your other items is, first of all, Crushing Blow. That's pretty much the most important one. And the second thing would be whatever you're lacking. Like, if you're lacking, you know, fire resistances, perhaps you want to use something like Laying of Hands just for that fire resist 50. If you're lacking some attack speed, then maybe Laying of Hands is also an option. If you're lacking attack rating, perhaps you want to take Angelic Amulet and Angelic Ring. Just one ring, no need to put them both, because you still want to have the Ravenfrost. If you know you're lacking, well, perhaps some lifesteal, you can take this belt, Nosferatus. It also gives you strength. It also slows target by 10%, which isn't huge when you're already proccing Decrepify so frequently and slowing them down with cold damage. But I mean, it's something. If you're lacking plus 12 skills just to improve your battle orders or natural resistances and high lords. Basically, that's how you should be looking at it. I mean, it's single player, there's no way to trade for better items for all those high-end items and so on. So that's what you should be looking for. Take a look at the bigger picture, how you're all around, how each item kind of works in combination with others. If you have 75 to all resistances, if you have enough crushing blow, like you should be aiming for at least 50%. If you have enough deadly strike, something like 50%. Again, if you have some sort of open wounds, just to get that extra damage, like 10% of open wounds is already enough. I'm not sure if I want to sacrifice anything for it. And yeah, just basically all that stuff. So the way I did it is I went with High Lords, just for some increased attack speed, some deadly strike, which isn't as great, but some resistances, and yeah, plus one to all skills. I went with Gilliam's Face, a huge boost to your crushing blow, some deadly strike, some strength, which again gives you damage, actually gives you a lot of damage. Yeah, I mean, it gives you 50 to maximum damage and then 15 to minimum. That's what the 50 strength pretty much does, because I know that this character screen doesn't really reflect your damage correctly. I mean, again, just I can put on my Gore Riders on and off and the damage doesn't change, despite the fact that it gives 15% deadly strike, and for this weapon my deadly strike is nowhere near 100%. So yeah, it's just not working properly. For boots I went with Gore Riders. I think they're pretty much the best option. Maybe actually for this build, since I already have so much deadly strike on my main damage weapon, main physical damage weapon, I could go for Goblin Toes, just for that larger bonus to crushing blow, 25% instead of 15. Maybe, I mean, they seem pretty equal to me. Like, one has faster run walk, one doesn't. I mean, you probably won't see a huge difference there, but perhaps Goblin Toes is a bit better with this specific setup. Next is gloves. I honestly don't remember which gloves I was running before respecking. It might have been Laying of Hands. I'm not sure, just for that damage to demons. It might have been some crafted blood gloves for the extra crushing blow. Because even with this setup, I have 35 crushing blow here, I have 15 crushing blow here, it's only 50%. So I don't mind getting additional 5 or 10% crushing blow on my gloves. Mana Seal is whatever, it does give me some resistances, so that is nice. I'm not sure what... You could even go for something like... Let's see, where are they? Dracul's, basically Grasp, Vampire Gloves, Vampire Bone, for some open wounds, some strength, some larger bonus to life stolen per hit. It's also a reasonable option. It's kind of, what do you need? Do you need attack speed more? Or do you need strength more? Or do you need some resistances? Or do you need even like mana steal or crushing blow? Like, again, a lot of options here. For belt I actually went with something else, not Nosferatus. And just today I found my Thunder Gods. So I'm really happy about it. And it's a really awesome belt, I would say, for this build, because of course, strength and vitality. Strength gives you damage. Let's just check how much extra damage it gives you. I mean, holy shit, it gives you 30, 60 to maximum damage on my main weapon. What is it? 55 on my second weapon. I'm calling this the main weapon, so yeah. That's a huge boost. Oh, of course, that's lightning damage added. So if we remove the lightning damage, probably adds around 20, physical damage or something. It's still pretty awesome. Vitality, just to increase your life. It gives 80 HP, which I think it then gets boosted, but I'm not sure. Just play around with it. And despite all that, the most important thing is, of course, lightning absorb and 10 to maximum lightning resist. There's a lot of lightning based minions out there who have really high physical resistances, like all those burning souls, at least one type of them. They're always physical immunes, and others just have pretty high physical resistances. So basically it will take you a lot of time to kill them. Even with the Decrepify on them, it will still take you a while to kill them. So having that extra lightning absorb in particular really helps you out. It doesn't apply to fire monsters or cold based monsters, because it's just the specific of lightning monsters. So yeah, I was using Thunder Gods. What else? A second Raven Frost. Not sure what you can really put here. Perhaps something like a dual leech ring, a blood crafted ring. It's also an option. Perhaps some, ring with just a lot of resistances. Let's see if I can have something. I have something called 26 plus some maximum damage. Really wasn't. And this one looks okay. Mana Steel, maximum damage, attack rating, quite a lot of it actually. Then all res. Oh, this one's nice. Yeah, basically lifesteal, all res, quite a lot of them, and some minimum damage. That's what you could use if you don't have a second Raven Frost. Out of unique ones, I don't know, like Bulkaphos if you have, but I mean that's pretty fucking expensive. So yeah, that's pretty much the build. Once the Fate procs, just swap it for players 1 for the Fate to proc. Let's just check my resistances. Once the Fate procs. Oh, and for the Merc I'm just using nothing too special. Duriel Shell, Vampire Gaze, and Obedience. Obedience just for more damage, because that's pretty much what you'll be lacking. Act 2 Nightmare Offensive Merc for the Might Aura. It increases your damage by, let's just check, 2.7k, and yeah, 700 extra damage. That's huge. So since this build is pretty safe, like I had 20 to all resistances without Fade, now I have 75 to all. I have about 20% damage reduced, and I have almost 4k HP. So I'm pretty good to go. The only thing that I'm lacking is basically damage. And that's what Might Aura provides me. I don't need the Holy Freeze because I'm proccing Decrepify myself. I don't need to slow them down even further. So Might Merc just makes a lot of sense. So naturally, since my all resistances are maxed out, I already have plenty of life. I don't need more survivability. I can allow to just put a lot of damage into my inventory as much as I can. If you feel like you're lacking health or resistances, then just put some charms with it. And it really, again, depends on the bigger picture, what you're lacking, what you're needing. In most cases, you'll be needing more damage. Trust me, it's not the fastest class. Though, it is a fun fact that while playing hardcore and leveling, I think, 3 barbarians and passing all hell through them, a couple of times on players 1, one time on players 8, there's not been a single barbarian that I died with, while there's been numerous of, those fast champions like Hammerdin or Sorceress or Javazon that I died with. So damage isn't all you care about on hardcore. First, you must take care of your survivability. Yeah, so that's kind of it. I think I didn't talk about my other weapon, which is pretty crucial. But, I mean, the logic behind it is really simple. You're already proccing Decrepify all the time. So basically you're lowering opponents' physical resistances. You already have elemental damage on your Lawbringer as well. So you kind of want more physical damage focused weapon as your second one. So what you want is basically as high physical damage weapon as you can get. The attack speed doesn't have to be crazy huge because of the Frenzy boost. So basically all you're looking for is just pure damage. I upped a Head Striker just because, the Deadly Strike is huge. It prevents monster heal. Well, that's whatever. It's literally the highest physical damage weapon I had. And to this day, I think it's still the highest. Like, do I have anything better? Even after all this farming? And this one seemed kind of on par with it, but the problem with this weapon is that it adds a lot of cold damage, which doesn't get kind of multiplied, which doesn't scale with Decrepify at all. It's just, just not the way resistances work. You could even upgrade this Barb Club for the Crushing Blow, Deadly Strike, Open Wounds. It doesn't have any attack speed. The enhanced damage is nice, but I mean, Head Striker gives you so much more. All this extra too. I mean, it has essentially the same enhanced damage as this one, but what it does is gives you 86 to maximum damage based on character level. Well, that's huge. That's absolutely massive. Since it all gets multiplied by all those enhanced damage sources from your Frenzy, from your Sword Mastery, and so on. Scepters. I mean, here's another potential kind of source of Decrepify, but it's really slow. So I wouldn't change it for Lawbringer. This doesn't give any bonuses. Yeah, pretty much I still to this day, this one's reasonable, but again, it offers a huge boost to elemental, well, to lightning and magic damage, which again don't scale with Decrepify at all. So it's not exactly a physical damage source. Perhaps this one to kill undeads, but I'm not sure. This could be potentially your amplify damage source if you manage to find this before you can make a Lawbringer. It's not ideal. It's only 6% chance to cast level 1 amplify. So basically the radius of that... Oh, it's amplify damage. Oh, it's not even Decrepify. Yeah, that's pretty much why I didn't mention Atmascarab, which is an amulet that allows you to proc amplify damage on striking, but when playing with a melee, no, I probably butchered the pronunciation. Anyway, when you're playing a melee character, you don't want to amplify, you want Decrepify, because just of the slow. I mean, that's essentially what makes this build so safe. Not only having huge resistances without basically any sources for it except for one item and your passives. You still have maxed out resistances. You still have huge defense. Well, actually, you don't have huge defense. Let's just check it out. You have reasonable defense without really using a high defense armor or having a lot of defense anywhere. So yeah, you're just naturally tanky, and you kind of shit. Yeah, you're naturally tanky, but without the Crepify, they'll still blow you up in seconds. So yeah, I really have no better weapon. I mean, of course, there's a lot of better weapons out there. I'm not sure if there's any rune words, like really cheap rune words. I think Oath is reasonable, but I haven't played around with it too much. But yeah, basically the logic is simple. As much physical damage as you can as your second weapon if you're using Lawbringer as your primary damage. I mean primary weapon. So yeah, just go for whatever you can find. And preferably up it if you need it. It will cost you something like it's either a Lem or a Pull rune, and then a Ko or a Lum. So it's not too expensive either. So this entire build costs you 2 Lem runes, potentially 3 Lem runes for upping, and then what? A couple of Ko runes, one for upping, one for just doing the Lawbringer. The rest of the items can be swapped for various other items. So yeah, I think that's it. I'll make a second video just showcasing how this character actually plays on Player's 8. I'll do something like a Chaos Sanctuary. I mean, the damage won't be great, it won't be the fastest build, but again, I'm playing fucking hardcore. I'm playing hardcore on a single player. I don't have any high-end gear, at least on this character. Like, the Ravenfrost isn't perfect. I don't have a Barbarian Torch. Well, my Annie's pretty good. My charms are shit. I mean, ideally you'd like to have like 3 to max damage, 20 attack rating, and then 20 life or something. Not sure. I don't have a single one. I mean, I have 3 to maximum attack damage and I'm happy. Or actually can get 4 maximum damage, I think. 4 20 something. I don't remember. Like, they're far from perfect. And this build just gets the job done. I've never died with it. I've never came close to dying, despite physical immunes or just annoying burning souls or whatever. Just a safe build. It gets the job done. It's not the fastest one, but if you want to pass hardcore, go ahead and just use it. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll make the second video as soon as I can. And if you have any feedback, just feel free to let it all out. Just let me know what you think. If you enjoy my content, if you absolutely hate it, despise it, I don't know. I mean, it's my first tries doing it. I have no idea what I'm doing. I just know I have some knowledge of this game, and I just kind of want to share, about topics that I kind of felt were under discussed online or on YouTube. Yeah, on YouTube. So yeah, hope you guys have a great day, and looking forward to hearing any sort of feedback.